Welcome makers, we've been working hard to bring you this tutorial on how to make a Tongan Kiekie. Thank you for subscribing and supporting our channel so that we can continue to create tutorials. You can also support our channel by purchasing Make It Megan merch on our website. Today I will be making a children's kiekie for my daughter to match one that I own. Mine was purchased from a market in Tonga several years ago. I have not made one before, but I'm going to use this one as a guide to make a matching one for my daughter. This kiekie is made from fau. Fau is used by the different Polynesian islands for costumes and other handicrafts. In Hawaiian it is called hau. Fau fibers are made from wild hibiscus plants. The outer bark is removed and the inner fibers are stripped, washed, and dried. I ordered my fau from Etsy. It is currently sold out from all the costume suppliers I know of, but I will still link it in the description box. If you have any other source for buying fau, please let us know in the comments. Here are the supplies I'm going to use today. I used about one bundle of the fau for a children's size. My fau was left over from other projects, so I have some variation in color. For an adult size kiekie, I would estimate that you need about 2.5 to 3 bundles of fau. The bundles I have are about 6 feet long. I'm using this craft flower loom to make my flowers out of fau. I will link it in the description box. The one I used was $7 from Amazon. It comes with different shapes and size looms. For the children's size, I'm going to use the medium size round loom. The loom also came with this needle, which I will use to make the flowers. Before using my fau, I practiced with raffia and lei twine while I was learning how to use the flower loom. You can cut the fau with scissors or gently tear it into strips. There are several layers of the fibers that can be separated. I left 2 or 3 layers together and then made my strips of fau 1/2 inch to 1 inch wide. The strips that I used to make this size flower were about 54 inches long. My number one tip for working with fau is to soak it for 20 to 30 minutes to make it easier to handle. I didn't figure this out until the end of the project, but you'll see me use a spray bottle with water throughout the process to dampen the fau. But it can be soaked and it will be easier to work with. It will also reduce the fraying and keep your flowers looking neat. I'm going to explain how to make the flower with the loom when I was practicing with the raffia, and then we will run through the steps again demonstrating with fau. My raffia wasn't long enough, so I'm tying 2 pieces together. You can also do this with the fau if you need to add length to the strand you're working with. The pink loom sits on top of the yellow base. There are little grooves for the back to sit in. There is also a slit on each side that you can put your raffia or fau in to keep it in place. The center pegs are marked with a circle around the base. For this design, I wrap my fau around every 2 pegs. For your starting point and to keep your design symmetrical, your center pegs will be the bottom center peg with the peg to the right and your top center peg with the peg to the left. I'm keeping my raffia on the left side of the bottom center peg and bringing it up to the top, going through 1 peg to the left of my top center peg. I will wrap the raffia around the center peg and bring it down to the bottom. Now I will go through the bottom peg that is 1 peg to the right of the center. Now I will wrap it around my center bottom pegs and to the top of the set of pegs to the right of my center pegs. I will wrap it around those pegs and take my raffia across the loom and to the set of pegs to the left of my bottom center pegs. I'll continue going all the way around the loom until I have wrapped each peg once. After wrapping the last peg, I will take my piece of raffia straight across the loom and through one of the pegs. So let's run through that process again, this time using foul. My foul is wider than the raffia, so the finished flower does look nicer. We will put our foul in the bottom slit to keep it in place. This loom is called a hana-ami loom. There are a few YouTube tutorials that show some different flowers or designs you can make with this loom using raffia or yarn. My goal is to replicate the same style as my kiekie, so I studied it to figure out how to make this flower. To start out the flower, I'm keeping my foul on the left side of the bottom center peg and bringing it up to the top, going through one peg to the left of my top center peg. I'll wrap the foul around the center peg and bring it down to the bottom. Now I will go through the bottom peg that is one peg to the right of the center. I will wrap it around my center bottom pegs and take my foul across the loom to the top of the set of pegs that are to the right of my center pegs. I'll wrap it around these pegs and take my foul across the loom and to the set of pegs that are to the left of my bottom center pegs. I will continue going all around the loom until I have wrapped each set of pegs once. After wrapping the last set of pegs, I will take my piece of foul straight across the loom and through one of the pegs. I'm taking a thinner piece of foul to sew a ring inside the flower to keep it in place. I would recommend threading this on the needle before you start your flower on the loom because your flower can unravel. Remove the pink loom from the base. I am starting my sewing where I have one of the extra ends. I'm wrapping my foul around 3 layers, which are my piece of foul from the end of the flower, 2 foul strands that are looped in between 2 pegs. I'm going to tie my piece of foul in a knot and leave an extra end that will be used to tie the other end once I get all the way around the flower. You can go either direction. I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to take my fowl across the loop to the left and in between the two pegs. Now I'm going to go back through the loop that I just went across and go through the loop to the left so that I get both strands of fowl wrapped this time that are in between the pegs. I'm going to keep repeating this pattern. I am sewing between the two pegs so that my fowl comes across the loop. Then I'm going back through the loop and through the loop to the left to wrap both strands of fowl that are in between the pegs. While I'm doing this, I do keep the flower pinched with my left hand because the loops can slip up and out of the pegs. Once I finish going all the way around, remove the pink loom. Tie the two ends together and knot it twice. We want this to be tight, but if you pull too hard, the fowl will break. As you work with the fowl, you will get a feel for it. Carefully trim the extra ends off. Here are a few of our finished flowers, and here's our flower compared to our Kiekie from Tonga. I think they look pretty good, especially for my first try. As I mentioned earlier, the only thing I would do different is soak my fowl so that it's easier to work with, and so I have minimal fraying as I make the flowers. Continue making the flowers. Each flower took me 10 to 15 minutes to make. The child-sized Kiekie took me 12 hours to make, and I would estimate an adult size would take me about 25 hours. Before we get into making the waistband, I'm going to give you the measurements of my Kiekie and the child's one I made for reference. The waistband of my Kiekie is 42 inches, not including the ties in the back. The flowers are slightly larger than the ones I made and measure 3 inches by 3 inches. Each strand of the Kiekie is made up of 6 flowers, and there are 13 strands. The waistband is 1.5 inches wide. The children's Kiekie is 23 inches, not including the ties in the back. My daughter wears a girl's size 6 or small. The flowers measure 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Each strand of the Kiekie is made up of 4 flowers, and there are 8 strands. The waistband is 1 inch wide. My daughter is slender and there's still room in the back. I think that this will fit her for another year. Her sister wears a medium 7/8, and when I make hers, I will add a few inches to the waistband. Next, I'm going to work on the waistband. I'm creating 3-strand braids out of the foul. You will need 6 braids total. This is the part that I wish I would have soaked my foul so that my braids would be smoother. The 6 strands will be braided together, so I'd recommend your length for the strands are 1.5 times the length of your desired waistband. So we're going to do a 6-strand band for the waistband. I'm leaving the ends open because it will be too thick to tie off. The easiest way to explain the 6-strand braid is to just focus on the outside strands. So I'm starting on the left side with my outside strand, and I'm going to take that and go under the next strand and over the next one. On the right side, we're going to do over, under, over. So my outside right strand goes over the strand to the left, under the next strand, and over the next strand. And we're going to continue braiding from left to right until your waistband is the desired length. I am threading some foul onto my needle. Looking at my kiekie, they folded back the foul and sewed it to the back side of the waistband and then sewed on the braided tie. I sewed through the waistband a few times to make sure all the ends were secure and then cut off the excess. Now I am braiding 3 strands of foul that will be the ties sewn onto the waistband. I braided my strand about 10 inches, knotted it on both sides, and cut it in half in the center of the braid. Sew your braided ties to each end of your waistband. Looking at my kiekie, they have wrapped foul around 2 to 3 of the flower petals to create the strands that hang down. The strands are then sewn onto the waistband. I used leftover fowl I had from 2 different bundles, so there was a color difference. I'm arranging my flowers in order, and I'm doing a slight ombre with the most tan flowers at the waistband and the light flowers toward the bottom. I am sewing my flowers into strands, trying to keep my flowers as straight as possible. My last step is to sew my strands to the waistband. I sewed through the waistband in 3 places for each strand of flowers. My main focus was adjusting the strand as needed so that it will hang straight when being worn. Here are some shots of the 2 kiekies next to each other. As I mentioned, this fits a toddler or small girl. After completing this project, I feel so much respect for the skill, patience, and creativity of the makers of these types of traditional items. As soon as I am able to find more fowl, I will be making one for my other daughter to match and hope to continue to practice and improve. Thanks for watching and supporting our channel. Leave us a like and a comment to help us keep creating tutorials.